It is hotter than Billy Joe Bob's chili. And once in a while you might see me doing this. It's not to be sensual. It's because I'm so hot. It's like 80 degrees or more inside this house. And that's with the air conditioners and the fan running. You know, back in the day, they would sit a block of ice right by the fan, and that was their air con. I feel like it's just, I probably would have better chances with it now. I'm thinking about eventually getting a battery-powered fan. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're doing another one of those Friday time slips. Okay. I'll tell a couple of stories, and then I'll tell a couple of experiences. I think one I have told like a long time ago, and the other one I don't think I ever did. But and what I mean time slip, not really time slip for me. One possible, but the other one just something strange. This first one happened in 1934 in Chicago. This lady, her name was Miriam. I don't know what her last name was. They think they said it, but I don't recall. She and her fiance were at this music store. A music store, pretty big one, obviously, because it had multiple levels to it. They were going in the elevator to go to some level for their music. Well, she got off. There was a rush of people in there. She got off at the wrong floor. And she tried to get back on the elevator before the door closed. But she didn't make it, so she was thinking, well, I'll just catch the next one. And you often hear that these elevators could possibly lead to portals. There's so many elevator portal stories out there, you know. It's like, I've never had it happen, but I've read and heard many stories where people have, so I don't doubt it. So, and yes, this is how country girls wear their hair when it's hot. And other women, I'm sure lots of women do. It's hot. Anyway, so she right when she was going to go get back on the elevator, she looks around and notices she is not in a music store. She's like, what? She sees she's at a train station, but not even a Chicago train station. She thinks she's not in Chicago anymore. So she's looking around. Nobody seems to be paying any attention to her, even when she tries to get their attention. So she goes up to the information desk. The lady doesn't seem to hear her or pay her any mind. Sounds like she's in another timeline or dimension thing. A lot of times, you know, you see place, but people can't always see you. And then she sees a young man who's probably like teenager, a younger, like a kid still. And he looks like he's in the same boat as she is. He's looking around. Nobody seems to be paying attention to him. And then they see each other. He looks relieved because he can see that she could see him. And she goes over to him and she says, I see they let you off on the wrong stop too. Just to sort of break the ice and be a little funny. Of course, because he's relieved because somebody's finally able to see him. And they were telling each other their stories, and he said that he was in Lincoln, Nebraska. So she's in Chicago, he's in Lincoln, Nebraska, but they don't seem to be at any of those places right now. Where were they? Who knows? That was really weird with the light. Anyway, so they start, blah, my story now. That sort of, that light thing like kind of like threw me off now. He said he was in Lincoln, Nebraska. He had been playing tennis. He went into the gym and when he got out of the locker room, he was going to go play some more tennis. But all of a sudden, it's not a tennis court anymore. It's a train station. And that's about where she found him at. So they're walking out into the town together, not knowing where they are at. And they walk to this water area where there's like a sandbar. And she sees across, like way across, on the other side of the water, she sees her fiance's sister with a couple other ladies. And she sees her. And she's waving, like trying to get her attention. And the boy sees this, and he's trying to get across the sandbar, through the water. But he's not making any progress. She gets really, like, frustrated by now. Closes her eyes. All of a sudden, she said she felt like she was floating in the air. And she was dizzy feeling. And when she opened her eyes, all of a sudden, she's sitting at this table in the music store. But time had gone by, because now it's about closing time, and she's realized she's been gone 2 or 3 hours. She's looking around for her fiance, who's nowhere in sight. So she decides to go to his house, and she finds him there. Of course, he had been worried about her, looked around for an hour or two and couldn't find her, so decided to go home. And he said that his sister had seen her, but when his sister had seen her, she wasn't at the sandbar, she was in town. She saw her as if she was in town, and she seen her like she was across from the sandbar. So obviously 2 different timelines, but they saw each other. Kind of weird. But still a happy ending. What happens when it's not so much? First, I'll tell you another story real quick. There was this lady who was taking her daughter, I think, to a dance studio. And she said, when she was in a car getting ready to pick her daughter up, she saw a man by a tree, the long beard, longer hair, in an iron suit, obviously like armor, like medieval times. He saw her for a moment. She got out to go out of her car to go over to see him. But by the time she did, he was already gone again. Went back home, thankfully for himself, you know. But what happens when they don't come back? It's a sadder story. There was this guy, this farmer in Tennessee, who had this, this nice farm. He was working with his farm hands. They went home for the night. And he was still out working. Well, his family came out to get him, like one of his older kids came out to get him when dinner time. But the plow and the mule were there, but he wasn't, and he wouldn't have left it unattended. So he's calling for his dad, calling, doesn't hear a thing. Crickets, just about. He goes inside, tells his mom, and they're all come out looking, the whole family. I think it was his youngest daughter who was calling out to her father, who finally heard faintly her father calling. And she's like, "Mom, everyone, I hear him." And then they could hear him and he could hear them, but they couldn't see each other. And some of them sounded like he was coming from the ground, but he sounded distant. They called the sheriff. The sheriff, of course, what is he gonna do, right? They were kind of in the wrong time for any kind of timeline rescues, right? So they would come out day after day. They would still talk to him, and he would hear them, and it got fainter and fainter each day, until finally they just didn't hear him at all anymore. And he never came out. Now, whether something happened to him or whether he just decided, I'm not getting out of this, and, But, and there's this other story, real quick, I will tell you. This other story, let's see if I get it right, where there was this guy, had a construction crew or working on in this house. And one of the guys had seen like a picture or something on this, like the brick wall or something, like it had like a window picture thing or something, and he showed the other guys when it came, and it was another, it wasn't like a picture on the wall, it was like a scene, like a portal opened up and they could see a place. And one of the guys said, I know that place, that's just down the street, that's the so-and-so tavern down the street. Well, one of those guys decided to go through there. And what happened after he went through there? Should he have gone through there? Probably not. Because it closed right back up again. And the guys are like, what happened? And they went outside looking around everywhere, but they could not find him. They went into the tavern. Of course, he wasn't in there. They're like, oh my God, what are we going to tell people? We can't call the police. They'll think we killed him or something, And just as they were getting really nervous and afraid, they hear a knock at the door. They opened it and they saw him looking really big-eyed. And they're like, what happened, man? And he said, well, I went to the tavern and they were having a funeral in the tavern. And it was 1944. So he went back in time to 1944. And these was like probably nowadays guys. And he went back. Could you imagine if he went and got stuck in the 1940s, right? He said those people saw him and they weren't very friendly at him, and they said that this lady had, I guess that everyone knew, had passed on, and he wasn't welcome there to leave, and so he did. Then he got back. Somehow he miraculously got back. I'm just gonna do this a little bit, guys. No, I'm not trying to entice anyone. Just hot. Anyway, but I think I've told before that the place that I had, the house I had in Germany, was seen to be built around a portal. That's why all of those experiences probably, even though I've had experiences since I've been here, and actually one that was like a timeline thing, but there it was like all the time. I would be in the office upstairs and I would hear the door open and close downstairs, the front door. I would go there and there would be no one there. I looked everywhere, no one there. Outside, no one there. There was no one there. But it almost sounded like it was like a distant echo type thing, like it was like there but wasn't there, It was just it would happen so often. And I know it wasn't ghosts or anything. That's still the same house I saw the shadow guy in, though, that went into the kitchen, or shadow man, or whatever it was, the big shadow that went across. I didn't want to go in the kitchen a while after that. But there was a lot of, good things, too. I kind of thought the house was cool, personally. The last night I was there, I stayed there all night. I was upstairs sleeping, and all of a sudden, and I wasn't sleeping, I was getting ready to go to sleep. I wasn't quite asleep yet. And, well, sometimes I can see things, but I can also hear things, like spiritually. I hear things from other places. And I heard all of a sudden, like, a whole bunch of people talking, but it sounded like they were talking all at once. That happened to me another time, too. And it was just so, like there were really people all around, everywhere, talking. Yeah, I didn't get much sleep that night. That just freaked me out. Like a nice cinder way, Ugh, there you go. But there was another time, I think it happened like back in 1989, 1990, somewhere in that time. When my in-laws at the time had just gotten their old, like it was like 200-year-old farmhouse, which later had still, and on their land is where we had also put that house with the portal So maybe there was some portals around there. I went to bed early. My husband at that time had been up talking to his parents, and I lay down. I wasn't asleep. I didn't go to sleep. This was not one of those. This was a dream. It wasn't. All of a sudden, I saw, and I know I said this before in another one, I saw, like, out of the wall was a big, like a circle, like a portal appearing. And I thought, what? This before I knew, thought about portals and stuff. I was just really starting to get into the spiritual type of thing. All of a sudden, there's like, it just sort of going, until there was a big, human-sized portal. And there was a man, blonde guy, probably wasn't bad looking, I don't know, it just freaked me out too much. I didn't really look at what he looked like. But he looked like he was, like that was in northern Germany and by Denmark. He looked like he would have been from this, type of area. And all of a sudden, I was like, the whole portal, everything happened around me, and it was like I was in a barn, like a stable. And the guy kept coming closer and closer to me. And I put the blankets over my head. And all of a sudden I felt like a shaking, and then I didn't wake up. It's like I just passed out. And I didn't come to until the next morning. And of course I told, and nobody really, But they did say that area where we were sleeping on used to be a stable for the house 200 years ago. I didn't know then. And all of a sudden I felt myself in a stable. So, But it was so weird. But I used to think, was that a ghost? But I don't think it was a ghost. I think it was a guy that was in his time, and I was in my time, and just like, just kind of went together for that moment. Maybe he was getting ready to shake me. He's like, who are you? What are you doing here? And then we went to our own place again. I don't know. I mean, it was really only recently I started thinking about that. And then there was the Whistler. I know I have the video on that, like way, way, way down by now. There was the Whistler story where my late husband, of course, at the time not, he was still there. I think it was like in 2005 or 6, I'm going to say. And I was taking a shower. He and my youngest son where they were sitting on the couch watching TV. I was taking a shower, had the door closed, everything, and all of a sudden, I heard someone whistling on the toilet. Well, I was taking a shower. I didn't think anything of it. Like, it was absolutely normal to me. I actually just thought it was my late husband. But then all of a sudden, it just stopped, and at first I didn't think anything of it. Then I thought, that's weird. I didn't remember hearing the door open or close for someone to come in or leave or anyone say anything. I just heard whistling. A man whistling. Like, whistling a little tune while you sit, I don't know. And I went into the other room, and the door was still closed, and I didn't hear it open, And I went into the other room, and was like, did you come into the bathroom at all while I was there? No. They were, and you could tell they were absolutely serious. Plus, I didn't really think it didn't sound like my late husband either's whistle or anything. He wasn't really a whistler. It's so weird. I mean, at the time when I heard it, it felt so normal. Like, oh yeah. Like, was there another me somewhere, and all of a sudden I was in that conscious, I don't know. So weird. But anyway, yes, I know this is another really long one, so I'll just end it here. And if I have any more stories, I guess it'll have to be for another one. Everyone, have a marvelous weekend, and over and out.